Hello and welcome to another episode of One Fall WrestleCast Live. Tom back with you after a 3 or 4 week hiatus. My bad. Life be life, and things that we need to get caught up on. Most of it's new stuff, some of it's old stuff that I feel like we need to discuss. Really looking forward to getting a chance to chat with Tom. And yeah, hopefully you're here to enjoy. We'll catch you on the other side. Welcome to the One Fall WrestleCast.
You are be cursed.
Huh?
Remember before Danhausen was even?
Hey, how about Danhausen willing the New York? How about Danhausen willing the New York Knicks to the NBA championship?
That's what exactly. Thank you for reading my mind. That's exactly where I was going. Remember before Danhausen was even in AEW or WWE, and I was like, dude, have you seen this guy Danhausen? Holy shit! He does the tequila dance like from Pee Wee Herman's off to ta 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 ta, and he kicks people. And then Derek came on and was Derekhausen, and we were like, this guy's the coolest thing in wrestling. And here we are, 4 years later. Maybe even longer than that. He's the fucking coolest thing in wrestling, and he willed the New York Knicks to their first NBA championship in 50 years? 50 years of that? So,
yeah, since 73.
Yeah, okay, so more than 50 years, 53 years, because that's how math works. It's insanity. That's if Derekhausen would have told me that however long ago that episode happened, I'd have told Derekhausen that he's a liar. But here we sit in 2026. I've seen a lot of people say that the Knicks winning the NBA championship has recorrected the timeline, where we got knocked out of the timeline when the Cubs won the World Series, and now we've been knocked back because it's like a double negative. It has recorrected the timeline. We'll see if that's actually the case or not. It's too early to tell, but I'm feeling optimistic. Not really, but maybe.
Anything anytime soon. So let's just put that bibby boy.
Are you back? You're back.
Yeah, I'm back. I mean, this old clunk box hasn't been loaded up in 4 weeks, dude. So sorry about that, by the way.
I feel like 1 or 2 of those weeks was my fault. At least one. At least one of those was my fault.
Definitely one, the concert, but the other 3 or 4 were one of them was not on me, it was on my wife, but because we started a 3-day project on a random Monday at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yes, I remember you telling me
mad
that.
at me whenever I got to do the podcast tonight.
It happens, I guess. I mean,
so there's that. So I'll take credit for 2 weeks. You can take credit on, and my wife gets credit.
All right, that makes sense. I'll take that. I'll take that one. I accept that. She can have one of those weeks.
The only problem is right now that generally everybody's asleep. And my internet is all to myself. But we're in the summer now, and I'm sharing the internet with everybody right now. So if this bottoms out, I'm gonna can smash my desk, and we'll just have to go from there.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So what are we starting with today?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure. Can you hear me? Do you understand me?
I can hear you and I can understand you. Sometimes you freeze and I'm like, is he there? Is he not there? Am I delayed? I don't know that you can hear me right now.
Yeah, well, not very well at all. That's a little bit of a problem, I'd say. Yeah, let's try to refresh to see what happens.
Okay, give it a refresh. Give her the old college retry. But yeah, going on with the Knicks and Danhausen. If you'd have told me 5 years ago that Danhausen was gonna somehow become a NBA basketball celebrity by cursing basketball teams and uncursing the Knicks and just being all over the place, and then the Knicks win the World Series, or not the World Series, good Lord. And then the Knicks win the NBA championship after 53 years or however long it was. Like, holy, like what world do we live in? When was that going to happen? Where, and they were not, the Knicks were not the favorites at all. The Knicks were like underdogs. We were sure, everybody was sure the Knicks were betting against. Hey, Walt's back. He was back.
I mean, I'm here. I don't know that how here I am, but I'm here.
All right. Well, let's get into our first topic before you fall off again. So I at least have something to talk about.
Well, let me grab my cellular device here. So,
yes.
Generally, you and this guy don't necessarily see eye to eye, but Bully Ray said today or yesterday on the old Busted Open radio, the Death Riders have not helped AEW in any way, shape, or form. The Death Riders are Jon Moxley playing out his pro wrestling fantasies because he's got Tony Khan's ear, because he wants to be Terry Funk. I would kick the shit out of Jon Moxley.
Is that where he ended it? Is that what the period? I did not see this.
I mean, that's just where the little article that I was at.
It's where the blurb ends.
He goes on to say, too many times I've seen wrestlers booked for what they want to see and what they think social media will pop for. The only thing you want to book for is for people who put their hand into their pockets and pay money to sit in a seat. That's the goal. That's the business of the business.
Usually, yes, I would agree that Bully Ray and I don't see eye to eye. His fantasy booking, particularly, he sometimes says things, and I'm like, that's the dumbest shit I ever heard. I'm glad he's not booking this. But in this regard, I think that he does indeed have history to back him up. I don't think that the Death Riders have helped one iota. In fact, when we're going to call it, held the AEW world title hostage for, God, it was more than a year. It was painful to watch those shows because it was the same as it is now. They were really only ever in like one segment. So it wasn't like they were weaving themselves through the show in the way that, like, when Roman Reigns shows up and the Bloodline shows up, there's a backstage segment, there's a promo in the ring, then there's a match later, kind of a thing. It wasn't like that. It was very much like, well, this guy's the world champion, and his friends around him, including Marina Shafir, who actually was doing the best work out of anybody there, but she wasn't putting butts in seats carrying the world championship in a briefcase. It was painful to watch. Like, those segments were some of the worst segments on that show, and I felt like devalued their world title after Moxley himself did a pretty good job of building it up when he was doing top guy shit. Then he was not doing top guy shit. Post that, they put whatever secondary title on him, and they're kind of doing the same shtick. It's just not, well, this is the world champion. It's like he's the continental champion or something like that. And it's like, it's the same shtick. And it's like, oh my God, like why? Like, oh, we're taking over. It's like, but you're not really taking over because you're only ever in like one segment. And there's one match that's different groups of you guys. Sometimes Moxley for a while there, I'll give him credit. He wasn't blading on back body drops. But there's still been kind of too much of that. And I don't, at this point, it's not only like to Bully Ray's point, like it's sort of fallen so far out of favor, even with the AEW fans. Those clips don't even do well in like social media, on like reels or on like, on anything like that anymore. Like where, you'd see those highlights, but that's not what you see anymore on AEW. You see Cope and Christian, and you see MJF and anybody and Darby for a little while. You never see the Death Riders, although if you turn on, they get a segment every week, and it seems to be more or less the same recycled crap over and over and over again, and it never goes anywhere. And I don't know why anybody would want to see that, or why Tony continues to let it happen, especially with all the other talent that they have. So yeah, weirdly enough, I agree with Bully Ray on this. Like they've
I mean, I've not myself have. Yeah, that's a new one. It's like, I think the last time that we did the show, we both agreed with Dave Meltzer take too. So, strange happenings in the world of professional wrestling where you and I are agreeing with arch nemesis. But I agree. Like, I don't think that the Death Riders early on, when it was first formed, I think that you and I particularly were excited on where this could go when you take Pac and you take Moxley and you've got Claudio and, and then they added Wheeler Yuta later on. But, it was like, this has potential to be something really, really cool. And at first it was like, it's kind of got like a little NWO feel to it without being like super corny and over the top. But I mean, after like week 6, it was just like, but what are we doing here? And it's continued to be a lot of the same, a lot of wash, rinse, repeat. And as somebody that listens to Busted Open and appreciates some of those things that are said on that program, I don't think that this is far-fetched at all. I think that the Death Riders really haven't added anything. Now you've got Claudio running around with a luchador mask on, and it's like, make it make sense, man. And they're absolutely doing the same thing with the Continental Championship that they did with the World Championship, except it's not being toted around in a briefcase and Marina Shafir's not carrying it around everywhere. So maybe that's to create some visibility for the Continental Championship, but like it's same. And I don't think that it's done anything to make AEW a better product. I don't think that it's done anything to put asses in seats. I don't think that it's done anything to bolster ratings. It's just kind of taken up TV time.
Mm-hmm. And taking TV time.
I watched an episode a couple of weeks ago. I watched an episode a couple of weeks ago where Renee's trying to do a backstage segment with the Death Riders, and they're doing fucking push-ups. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
what are we doing?
They saw somebody doing pull-ups in a WWE backstage segment one time, and we're like, we can't do pull-ups. We're doing push-ups. It's ridiculous. It just looks ridiculous. Everybody that looks dumb.
And I'm one of those guys that for the longest time since Moxley ended up in AEW and he showed up in AEW after the run that he had as Dean Ambrose in WWE, I spent a lot of hours on this program defending Jon Moxley, saying, hey, man, he's just out here living his best wrestling life. He's a top guy doing top guy things, while you were saying, Jon Moxley's not acting like a top guy. Jon Moxley's not a top guy. and it's hard to sit here and continue to defend John Moxley for some of the work that he's been doing. His in-ring is still really, really good and still really on point. But from the standpoint of being a character on a wrestling program, I'm good, man. I'm good with all these guys. And like I like Claudio and I like Mox. I like Pac. I think that there's plenty of good that these guys can be doing, but it's just like this reminds me an awful lot of like the 15th time the DX reunited, and it's the same, right?
At least that wasn't all at once. That was that at least happened like in 98 and then like 2002 and then like 2008. It wasn't like, oh, we're just gonna DX for years straight. It was like, okay, I got a 8-month run here, and then they kind of go their separate ways, and then a little 8-month run here, and this has been too much, too long. It's been so long. I would say it's been like 3 or 4 years of this now. It's just it's a lot. It's been a lot. And
I don't know that it's been 3 or 4 years, but it's definitely been 2.
Okay.
And it's been extremely underwhelming.
Well, remember before that they were the Blackpool Combat Club.
Yeah, but I don't even think that lasted very long because they created that moniker, and then Regal left to go back to WWE, and then they became the Death Riders, and they turned down this road that they're currently driving down. And at least when they were the Blackpool Combat Club, they were like just beating people up, and
so Blackpool Combat Club debuted March 6th, 2022. So it's been over 4 years now. Since if we include Blackpool Combat Club, it's been over 4 years.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's why it's too much.
It is too much. It really is too much. And like it's not changed at all.
No. They swapped out Danny Garcia. They swapped out Danny Garcia for Wheeler Yuta, who stopped getting haircuts because I was making fun of the fact that he cut his own hair. Honestly, I'm shocked that I'm shocked that I called it out and it was 4 years, and it's been 4 years since Blackpool Combat Club. Can you believe it? Because Brian Danielson, I'm sorry, was part of it at that point.
Yeah, he was.
It kept Mox from killing. That's where it jumped. I don't know if that's where it jumped the shark, but that was the first shark jump when he kept Mox from killing William Regal in the middle of the ring. Gave that like speech about his dad or something. It was like, what are we doing here? That never went any. That went to like one match and then like fell off a cliff. Like, what are we even doing with that?
Hey!
Uh-oh. Kids are getting yelled at.
I'm single dadding this week. The wife is in Minneapolis. Hold, please.
Holding.
I know. Little shit.
Bring him over
the wife
here.
is in Minneapolis right now.
Bring him over here. I'll make my kids watch your kids. That'll can entertain each other. Uh-oh. It's gonna get him.
I'm so sorry. Like I can't ever get away from anything ever.
Chasing you down.
Anywho, it's just, my wife's in Minneapolis right now. She's out there saving the world. She's a swim coach for Team West Virginia, for the National West Virginia Special Olympics team. Just so very, very proud of her. her and the work that she's done with that organization. And yeah. So before we get back into wrestling, we were talking beforehand about my high noon transfusion. So let's dig into that real quick. So I walked into the old local watering hole, that you buy the liquor store, right? To buy these high noon transfusions. And I'm walking through the front door, and the cashier's like, "Hey, how you doing?" "I'm great, thanks." And I thought I saw something sitting on the counter, and I said, "Nah, there's no way. So I go back into the cooler, get my transfusions. I come out, go up to the counter to pay, and sure as shit, I saw what I saw. There was 4 bottles of Buffalo Trace, 3 bottles of Weller, green label, 4 bottles of Blanton's, and 5 bottles of Eagle Rare, all with a single barrel store pick sticker right on the front." And I said, "How much is that Eagle Rare right there?" He goes, "Oh, that's a single barrel. We picked that." I said, Yeah, I know. I
know how that works.
I know how that works. How much is the bottle?" He said, "Oh, it's $89.99. I said, "I'll take 2, please."
Ashley said, "Oh, shut up." I don't know if you heard her, but we saw a couple weeks ago. We did run in, and they had they had regular Buffalo Trace at my local liquor store, which is not. I mean, it's not all that uncommon. Like if you show up at the right time on like a Friday, like if you go at lunch after they got it and it's there, there'll still be 2 or 3 cases there, and they'll let you take 2 if you want. I'm like, it's okay, neat, and it's usually by the time I usually run into it once every like 6 months. So I'll get 2 then, and I'll just I'll drink 1 and then leave 1 and forget about it and find it and be like, "Oh yeah, this is nice." But I don't know, man. It's been. I'll tell you my Eagle Rare story then. So there actually is a store, and I'm pretty sure this is why it's never in Fine Wine and Good Spirits, because all the guys that do their liquor order swoop it all up and get all the Eagle Rare before it gets on the shelf, so they can sell it to me for 3 times the price or whatever, probably 200, probably 20 times the price, behind the bar, at the Bigham Tavern over here where we like to go for trivia. But anyway, so lately going there, like the trivia is great, the food's great, the beer selection sucks, but they've got Eagle Rare there, right? And I'm looking at the beer because the beer selection changes all the time. I'm looking at it, and it's all a bunch of gross, weird hazies and sours and stuff that I'm not into. And I'm like, ugh. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna give me a double of Eagle Rare, neat. That'll be good. That'll be great. It's probably like $15 to get a double of it, which is not the worst, but it's not the best price either. Anyway, she brings this over. She spills like a third of it on me, like on the table, and was like, "Sorry," and just scurried away. I'm like, "You gotta be fucking kidding me!" Like, what is this? So, I have not been back since. I've been sour. I've been salty about it, but that's what happened to me the last time. So I get it. I just got to pay, bar prices for it because they swoop it up,
which is just outlandish. Just outlandish.
It is.
But I got a couple bottles of Eagle Rare single barrel store pick, so I'm a happy little.
I'm gonna have to just come visit you.
So I saw this a couple. I saw this a couple of weeks ago, and I really, really wanted to talk about it. You know who Nick Nemeth is, right?
Of course, Jeffrey Penis himself.
That's right, Jeffrey Penis himself. Well, he's got a little brother named Ryan, right?
I do, yes.
And you know that Ryan has created some legal issues amongst AEW, right?
I've heard that, but I don't remember exactly what it is. But yeah, I've heard that.
So I saw this a couple of weeks ago, and I screen grabbed it, and I figured that it would be a great little topic for us to discuss. AEW has claimed that Ryan Nemeth has misrepresented and misled them through his conduct in voluntarily dismissing his lawsuit filed on February 2025 against the company by agreeing to take the matter to private arbitration. AEW filed a petition on June 5th of this year in the U.S. District Court in the Middle District of Florida to compel Nemeth to arbitrate the dispute at a JAMS administrative office nearest to Duval County. So I'm assuming that's Jacksonville Area Magistrate something, right?
Yeah, that would be.
I'm assuming.
I've seen the signs for that when I flew out of Jacksonville once, so yeah, that would be my assumption as well. Yes.
To the administrative office nearest to Duval County, Florida, and to be adjudicated under Florida law. In a separate filing, AEW and Tony Khan are seeking to seal confidential information related to the 3 independent contractor agreements that Nemeth signed from 2021 to 2023. AEW argues that the agreements contain sensitive, confidential, and proprietary information belonging to the petitioners, AEW, including but not limited to information related to its business practices, its internal economic structures, compensation agreements, and intellectual property. So that leads this poster to ask, what do we think AEW's hiding?
I mean, they're hiding egregious salaries, that's for sure. I think that's number one, is that they're hiding big payouts to certain guys so that other certain guys don't get jealous because of what certain guys are getting paid. And I think that that's probably the primary. AEW being a private company, they don't need to disclose who makes what. They don't need to disclose revenue. I would also think that they probably don't want to disclose how much money they don't make based on their salary. I don't know, obviously all of it's private because it's a private company, but I can't imagine they're paying some of these guys millions of dollars, and they are paying to put on these shows that are in, smaller ballrooms. I don't know what the TNT deal looks like because, again, private. But I assume that eats up some of the cost, some of the production cost. But I can't imagine they're making money hand over fist. Like, I would say that they don't want the public to see, one, that this company is more or less breaking even or worse, and two, they don't want talent to see what some other talent is making. I would assume probably guys like MJF, probably guys like Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho, guys that have these really long-term deals are probably making 2 and 3 times with some of these other guys who are on shorter-term deals who, are likely, think of themselves at this point as just as big of names, probably trying to keep something from MJF as well. Because I think if MJF knew what Chris Jericho made, or maybe that's what happened and why MJF freaked out in the ring that one time, because he found out what somebody else was making versus what he was making. He wanted paid more. There's a whole bunch of things in there that I think that, if those secrets get out, it could cause problems in the locker room with the fan base, and probably in a host of other places as well. That would be my thought and assumption. But what do you think?
My line of thinking is very much there, right? That it's definitely got a lot to do with pay practices. Who's getting paid, who's not getting paid, contract lengths, things like that, things that we are not privy to as a private company, as the average wrestling fan, that we are privy to as WWE being a publicly traded company. I think that that's probably the biggest piece of this puzzle is the pay practices. But I think what's interesting about that is proprietary business practices. Um, you know, what does the language look like in the contract based on creative? What what are they trying to protect from an intellectual property standpoint if they're trying to seal contracts from court documents? I feel like there's definitely a level of shadiness um, in the way that this is being represented. Um, and it's probably nothing really, because I imagine that it's probably a pretty standard talent contract. I don't think that they're getting too far in the weeds with, like what their creative would be in the language inside of a contract. But that they're concerned about those things, namely intellectual property, namely, creative processes. It's just a really, really strange thing to be concerned about in sealing a contract.
Do you think that
Um,
there's maybe something in those contracts that's also like guaranteeing certain stars certain amounts of matches and main events and main event payouts and things like that? Do you think that that is?
and there very well could be, and maybe that's maybe with Ryan Nemeth in particular, who, for the most part, is somebody that I think was heralded pretty high by AEW at the time.
At least
Um,
initially, they thought he was going to be a big deal. I mean,
yeah,
he had the
they
look.
thought he was going to be they definitely thought he was going to be a big deal. So, maybe there's some language in the contract that states, certain quote unquote promises,
Mhm.
that would happen from a creative standpoint, or based on, maybe some merchandising, or something along those lines that, maybe never came to fruition, and maybe they're filing this petition to try to get these things hidden because maybe they're afraid they're going to be held liable for breach of contract.
Mhm.
As far as things being written and agreed upon and signed upon between both parties. It's just a really, really interesting little wrinkle um, that I never in a million years thought that I would read.
So I think that you're probably hitting the nail on the head with that too, because if you think about it, he kind of debuted to decent fanfare. They would have at least thought that he would be a solid mid card guy. So they probably had, okay, you're guaranteed X amount of title reigns and X amount of merchandise and X amount of this and that. And for the most part, Ryan Nemeth's sort of AEW run was pretty stop start, and but it was early on too, because I think you said maybe what 2022 or 21 it started. So if it's 21, that's still pretty early in the company's life there, and they probably weren't really looking at the contracts all that tightly. They were giving people big money and stuff because they wanted to get this off the ground and they wanted to find some stars. And Ryan Nemeth didn't work out. And by the time they got more guys in there that didn't work out, or people that, would have been less than, and maybe Ryan Nemeth with his brother, being a wrestler for so long, got some help and kind of got in there and lawyered himself a sweet deal. And they were probably up for it because they were like, oh, we got the next Dolph Ziggler here. We're going to get 14 years out of this guy. He's so young. He's so talented. Look how great he looks. He can talk. And none of that clearly ever came to fruition. And, they probably, when they tried to part ways with him, he was like, whoa, 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 I got all this guaranteed stuff here. I got a title run coming up. I got merchandise that needs to be fulfilled. I got this and that. And, all kinds of other things. And they were probably like, well, no. So now that, we've sort of deep dived this a little bit, it just kind of feels like that's probably what it was, is that there were some guaranteed promises that he somehow got into writing and then signed off on. And those promises never came to fruition. And like as you should when a contract is not fulfilled, he took it to court, and now AEW is going, oh fuck, we wrote that in there. Who wrote that there? Who was that? Our old lawyer. What happened? We fired him. Shit. Oh. And now
too, and I think that this little issue also lends some credence to what we've heard, from the likes of, a Jake Hager or a, oh God, what's another example? There's plenty. Yeah, Will Hobbs. I mean, there's plenty of examples, and for whatever reason, I just can't think of them off the top of my head.
I mean, Danhausen had some things to say around when he
Danhausen, Ray Fenix.
Ray Fenix, for sure.
Just like the whole ghosting thing, right? Like, yeah, just kind of stop returning my phone calls. Stopped answering emails and stopped answering text messages. I think that something like this, where, you get subpoenaed based on a contract, an agreement that both parties mutually signed, agreed upon terms, and then, one party felt like, hey, I didn't get what I was promised, what was agreed upon here. And then they take it to court, and then, a lot of that stuff, we've been hearing about a lot of that stuff for how long now? The better part of 3 or 4 years we've been hearing about.
Yeah, I mean, since people started getting released, probably somewhere around 2022.
I mean, Marcus Stunt is another one that said, hey, man, they just really kind of stopped answering my phone calls.
I feel like he was the first one who went from being on TV every week to like.
Joey Janela is another one.
He deserved it, but
yeah, I mean, I'm not here to split hairs. I'm just, I'm using.
Yeah, you're right.
Using examples of folks that, the AEW audience and Tony Khan specifically were high on at one point. And now we're at a point where, the Lucha Brothers are both in WWE. Will Hobbs is in WWE. Jake Hager's working for TKO, with the power slap shit. It's just like, what are we doing here? And the fact that Ryan Nemeth, of all people, is the poster child of this whole quote unquote AEW ghosting thing, I think is rather interesting.
I would say that his brother's experience negotiating contracts with one Vince McMahon for how long? God, how long was Dolph Ziggler in WWE?
20 years?
Yeah, 20 years. So he would have probably said, "Hey, this guy, let's get some stuff in writing that you want, because then once it's in writing, he's got to do it." And now that it was in writing, and they fought it, and now it's gone to arbitration, and now it's got to go in front of a mediator, and now it's like there's got to be, it's a public, it's stuff that's got to come out now, and they're like, oh, if this comes out, then everybody else is going to see that he was promised, whatever what was there, it was TNT title runs and merchandise and things that they didn't do, because his run went nowhere. There were no t-shirts. There were no title shots. There was nothing. And
and by all accounts in the in the IWC, Ryan Nemeth was somebody to keep your eye on. And AEW gobbled him up post haste. I mean, and the fact that he signed 3 independent contractor agreements across a 4-year span, I think, is a telling sign of what AEW thought he could potentially be, and maybe they didn't understand what he needed or what they needed to make him work. But regardless, there's something there, some sort of written and signed and agreed on promises were not that were not adhered to, and that were not followed those guidelines were not followed. I think that this has potential to possibly get into, very much tried to sweep this into some private arbitration so that they can, keep this out of the limelight. But I've not seen anything about this since this screen grab, and that was on June 11th that I screen grabbed that because I looked. So, I mean, we are 3 weeks from when I grabbed that.
Almost 2, not quite. It's only the 22nd, so it's been 11 days. I would also think too that what it might do is if he wins for having it could open the floodgates for guys like Ray Phoenix, for guys like Willie Hobbs, for guys like probably not Danhausen at this point because he's making human monies over fist, and but also Marco Stunt, tons of other guys whose promises went unfulfilled and contracts left unanswered and stuff, and guys who didn't necessarily think that they had the money or the power to go after Tony Khan, and maybe their contracts weren't as egregious. But at this point, with AEW sort of like teetering back and forth as to whether or not, well, and this week we got views, this week we don't have views. This month, MJF is the champ, so we've got, our ratings are up and we're doing good. We put it on Darby and the ratings, 250,000 people stopped watching every week. Put it back on MJF, most of those people come back, but now we're going into Forbidden Door and the ratings are sliding again because nobody gives a shit about Forbidden Door, because why would you care about the looted chest that is New Japan Pro Wrestling at this point? Like, all the New Japan Pro Wrestling stars are already in AEW and WWE. What would you need to watch them for? So,
right.
maybe it's
financial. I mean, and I think that, and I think like, you bring in some great points to where I want to head next as far as like what the Forbidden Door looks like. But I don't know, man. There's something going on, and this is one of those things that you look at and it's like, where there's smoke, there's got to be some fire, right? And I think that as this continues to develop, we are probably gonna learn more than Tony Khan and AEW wants us to.
Yeah, for sure.
So definitely something for us to keep our ears and eyes on. But we shall see. We shall see. So with Forbidden Door, just right in front of us, I mean, is it really worth it for us as an AEW fan base to be invested in any further?
I would say no. From my, and here's why. I think the first time it happened, it was cool. They still, New Japan particularly still had, and they had just come off of that little partnership with TNA before as well that seemed to go really well, and everybody did better after that for that. So it made sense to go right into Forbidden Door because there were a bunch of New Japan guys who Tony Khan was thinking of dream matches at that point in time. Who could I book if I had a pro wrestling video game and I could book a guy from one company to fight a guy in another company? It was sort of like, the thing we used to do when we were kids during the Monday Night Wars. Like, oh my God, what if The Undertaker fought Sting? Shit like that. So he was kind of, and he had Sting. At this point in time, I was like, oh my God, what if we get this New Japan star and get him to fight Sting, or this guy against John Moxley, or and there was a lot of that at that point in time. But that would have been, when was the first Forbidden Door? Like 22, maybe? First AEW for
I think so.
Forbidden Door. Let's see. Yep, 2022. So this was 4 years ago.
But I mean, in that first Forbidden Door, we got Ospreay, we got Okada, we got Takeshita. Like, these were all New Japan guys at the time.
Right. And now they're all AEW guys. So they essentially, in the last 4 years, AEW has looted New Japan wrestling. And not to say that WWE hasn't as well. They just got Evil and a bunch of other, like, newer stars. So like New Japan was like first looted by AEW and has since been relooted by NXT. So they are hobbling on, old guard that it just doesn't want to leave Japan for a long period of time, and brand new talent who even New Japan fans don't know. So you now get into it, and this is the problem that Forbidden Door has had sort of since the beginning, is that it kind of puts everything else on hold for this. It's like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, we got all these guys coming in from New Japan. It's going to be Japan versus AEW, and we got to have those matches. We're going to focus on all this for a month to build up to this pay-per-view. And it's like, well, everything else is now on hold. So there's no real ongoing, like the ongoing feud for the world title is more of a trickle at this point. It's not. It's something you can watch in a quick clip. Same thing's happening if there's any feuds for mid-card titles or tag titles or anything like that. So the fan base more or less knows now that they can tune out. Like they've been trained at this point, especially for the last couple of years, been trained to just, we can just tune out. I don't know any of these New Japan guys. They're putting all these other stories on hold. And it's busy right now. It's you and I mean, we're perfect examples. It is very busy in the month of June. First with all of the school stuff ending, and then with all of that beginning of summer stuff starting and everybody wanting to grill and have cookouts, and it's Father's Day. And, so there's all this stuff going on and happening. And, so it's like, okay, I'm busy on Wednesdays because I've got stuff to do every Wednesday night now with the fam. There's softball games, there's baseball games, there's soccer games. So I could take a month off and not watch. And, it's cool from a relaxed fan perspective that you can like kind of tune out and they're just going to do something for the hardcores. But what it does to your ratings at that point in time is like suicide. And now is not the time for that to be happening to AEW after they already had what should have been sort of like a high period during that Mania season. Like they had a slide during that period because they had the title on Darby too. So, and I don't know what that means. This might be the last Forbidden Door. After this one, and that may not be Tony's decision. That may be Warner Brother Discovery, TBS's decision. Like, hey, you bring all these New Japan guys in, it costs a ton of money in flights and whatnot, and we lose half the ratings. So we're not going to do this anymore, kind of a thing. He may get a top down. You're not going to do this anymore. You're not going to have another contract, kind of thing. So right. that would be my concern on that.
I don't know, man. I agree. I think that it's very much a point of like, we've seen it over the last several years with Forbidden Door outside of that first one. Because that first one, even you and I, like not being like super in depth with New Japan, but I mean, we obviously knew about the Okadas and the Ospreys and the Takeshita's and those types of dudes that I mean the Zack Sabre Juniors, those type of guys that were included on that original show, which in turn led us to Ospreay being an AEW and being a week in and week out face, and Okada being a week in and week out face, and then WWE even taking some. I mean, another guy I think that we can call back to from that first show is Jay White, Switchblade, that we've not got to enjoy, whether it be lack of creative or injuries or, the mill of the two of them. There was a lot of excitement around that first Forbidden Door because nothing like this had ever been done. And you can throw TNA into the mix, during that first Forbidden Door pay-per-view. And now obviously WWE is, in full driver's seat, partnership with TNA, as well as the driving force behind AAA, which I believe we're going to get into here in a minute. But, it leaves CMLL and all of these things. It's just not as exciting today as it was 4 years ago.
No. And I would argue that it would take a decade for it to be built back up to be that, because New Japan would need to build up new stars, and that takes time.
Yes.
Maybe they need MLW. That's where all the old WWE guys go. Get Forbidden
Right,
Door
and
with Major League Wrestling.
Matt Riddle's there right now. MLW actually, for a little while had my attention. When the Von Erichs were still there, and Jacob Fatu was there, and they had my attention. But they quickly lost it. They had some really good storylines and some really good things going on. But that has since fallen to the wayside a bit.
They've had Killer Cross doing some decent stuff lately, but otherwise, it's very spotty.
I imagine probably maybe by next year, Cross is back in WWE. I feel like that's kind of still the road that we're headed towards. He's still, doing interviews, still kind of playing is it a work, is it not a work game, even though I think at this point in time we've all come to terms that it's not a work. He did show up in AEW at one point. If I'm not mistaken, he was there for one night.
In AEW. Hold on. Let's see.
Yeah.
He held discussions, but nah. Yeah, it was rumored. It never came to fruition. There were past discussions. Oh, and the other thing, just to put a bow on the Ryan Nemeth thing, he alleges that all the ghosting happened because Tony Khan and CM Punk. It was CM Punk's fault that he got ghosted. That's the tie-in. That's why it didn't work out, according to him, according to his lawsuit. Phil Brooks.
Of course. Everybody wants to blame CM Punk for everything. And then I love all this turmoil around the whole CM Punk not being on TV since WrestleMania thing. I think you and I talked about that coming out of WrestleMania. We anticipated a little bit of a vacation. We did get him on the Monday after Mania, and maybe the Monday after Mania.
It was just the Monday after, and I think he said he was going to go away for a couple weeks. And the internet seemed to take a couple weeks as 2 weeks. Well, I believe that a couple weeks would consist of 2 weeks. It's since been 2 months.
And then, you've got all this video footage coming out of him collapsing after the main event on night one. And obviously AJ Lee has since taken hiatus, and all of these things just make sense. I think everybody's just trying to make problems where there doesn't seem to be problems, just to continue to create to the narrative that Phil is a cancer. And while Phil very well may be a cancer, we've not heard or seen any examples of that on this latest WWE run. And I very much think that it's just a case of, April, I'm tired. I'm old. I'm hurt. And I work with children. Not children from the standpoint of immaturity, just children from the standpoint of youth and exuberance. I think that we need to take an island vacation so that I can just let my old bones relax.
Well, they caught him in the gym looking yoked as hell.
Yo, tell me about it.
He was like,
bless America.
Was like, do 47-year-old men build muscle like that whilst being straight edge? Because he looked like that in his 20s.
Hey, Bob, I don't know that Mexican vitamins fall under the straight edge category.
Maybe not. Maybe that's where they went on vacation. Went to Mexico.
If we're being quite honest with you, you can get TRT prescribed from a doctor.
That's true. Technically, you can. And you can, and especially for older guys. I mean, he's probably of the age where those are the guys that get prescribed it.
Because I mean, he is knocking on 50's door. Hey, hey.
He is. He's what, 40? He's going to be 48 if he's not 48 already.
What? Morning. I clicked mute, but it clearly didn't mute.
It lagged. It's okay. We got what and Ing.
Oh, well. That's good. You didn't hear me being all vulnerable with my child.
No, it's okay.
That's
I had to yell at mine today too. It rained, so they didn't have anything to do, so they were just here bouncing balls inside all day. And I'm like, I have to work. If you guys don't stop that now, I'm gonna kill everybody. It's gonna be bad. Okay, sorry, Dad. Can we have lunch? Yeah, okay. Anyway, moving on. Fucking CM Punk. A couple weeks off.
But yeah, I'm very much of the thought process that the Forbidden Door thing has run its course, and I'm just really not here for it.
No. As soon as they announced that they were working up for it, I actually haven't watched AEW since then. So I've read into it a little bit, and I'm like, not interested. I did see that Cope and Christian got basically no reaction, which was weird, but it was just a one-off thing.
I also saw that FTR's taken some time off.
I mean, that makes sense. They've already fought everybody in New Japan, and they fought. Yeah. What a wet noodle they are in AEW. It's so like I guess they did a couple things that were kind of cool, but like, man, they'd have really done. I feel like their AEW run hasn't been any better than their NXT run. So, yeah. Fuck the Revival.
Remember whenever they were a big deal in AEW when they first got there?
Yeah, for a hot minute. And they were still doing those vlogs. The Young Bucks were still doing their vlog, and Cody was in it. And Cody, the viral moment of Cody staring at the camera, going, "Fuck the Revival."
That's it. Fuck the Revival.
Yeah, it was. That was the start of it all, and then there was a match with the Young Bucks, which they won. I think they beat the Young Bucks the first match to win the titles. And then they lost, and then they brought in Tully Blanchard, and that got into MJF's thing, and then that fell apart. And then what was that? 3-4 months after they got there, and their run's basically been stop, start, get arrested for firing guns at people who cut you off.
Bang bang gang.
Bang bang. That's exactly it.
So, I know that this happened a couple of weeks ago, but we've also not done a show since this happened, and this was a big deal on the old interwebs. This was a big deal in wrestling circles. Hell, this was a big deal in our wrestling circle.
We texted about
it. I would love to talk about mask versus mask, El Grande Americano versus El Grande Americano, in what has received WWE's highest Dave Meltzer star rating in the history of WWE at 5 3/4 stars. My God, what an incredible program Ludwig Kaiser and Chad Gable put together.
I mean, not only that, but like the match itself obviously was just unbelievable. It's going to be the match of the year unless somebody invents something entirely new. that turns wrestling on its head. It's going to be the match of the year. But just the build
it very well could be feud of the year.
It should be. That's what I was. The build from it. They fought on NXT. They fought in AAA. They fought on SmackDown. They fought on Raw. It was everywhere. You couldn't. They were on. I don't know how they got these guys everywhere, but you couldn't stop. Like they must have each had their own supersonic personal jets to get from. There was one day I think I texted you because they were cutting promos in Mexico. I'm like, how the fuck did he get from Mexico to wherever they were in Europe? I was like, he got from like Mexico to France in like 8 hours. I'm like,
yeah, it was like less than 12 hours.
It was insanity. It's like, how did this?
Were they on a was Chad Gable on a Concorde?
He must have been. I think like because he did a thing in Mexico and it was live.
They did the match in Mexico. The match, and then he was on Monday Night Raw.
But that was so there was that happened too. He did shoot back and forth that fast, but there was also a point in time where they were on they did a different match in Mexico. It was just like a promo. It was a tag match or something, and they were on the European tour. They were in France, and he made it from Mexico to France, which happened like at 2:00 our time, and the Mexico time was still, it would have been 3 hours behind, but they did it that like evening. So it was like 5 or 6 o'clock Mexico time. And he made it and was on Raw in France, which is an 8-hour time difference. Like you lose 8 hours flying from where and they may have lost more, could be depending on what time zone they were in. But anyway, you lose at least 8 hours flying to France. And then he was there. It was like, what happened? How did he what did he teleport? And then you're right, they did it again because he went from that match and he was on Raw the very next day in Maine or something.
It
was fast because it would have been like 11 p.m. to like they ended it. It was certainly less than 24 hours. It was I think like 18 or something the second time, but the first time was even crazier.
So I think that I want to dive in a little bit here on this more so than I anticipated that we would. But obviously, leading up in the week leading up to this match, Marcel Bartel found himself in some hot water in Orlando, Florida.
He did.
Obviously arrested, turned himself in due to an incident that happened with what appears to be a racist cocksucker neighbor in his high-end penthouse in Orlando, Florida. And we have not heard anything.
I was say the story seems to come out in the same way.
We've not heard anything about.
You froze. I was trying to cover for you. Say the story kind of seemed to come out in the same way that remember when the guy pushed Alan Rickman, who is a giant man. Anyway, he's Reacher. He's just a huge dude. He pushed him while he was on his motorcycle, and then he proceeded to get his ass beat. And then the jury cleared Alan Rickman of all charges because it was like, dude, you pushed a guy, and then he hit you back. Like, you could have hurt lots of people. You pushed him on a moving motorcycle. You're lucky you only got punched in the face. It seems like when the video footage of this finally came to light, because this guy was like, oh, I merely asked them to be respectful as they were making out in the elevator, and then I was viciously assaulted. They pulled up the video, and this guy says, hey, I'm going to call ICE on your bitch girlfriend or whatever, and Kaiser being like, obviously, if anybody says that to you while you're there with your significant other, you're going to stand up to him. And, it probably helps if you're 6'1" and built like Ludwig Kaiser. Proceeded to scare the absolute shit out of this guy where he fell down, probably hit his head. And once they took a look at that, they dismissed the case totally outright. The weird thing about that is, who bailed him out?
Gunther.
Yeah.
That's his ride or die, bro.
Absolutely. So a very I was glad to hear it. Kind of almost added some mystique to this match because you're not supposed to know. Everybody knows it's the worst secret in wrestling. but you're not supposed to know. That's not Ludwig Kaiser. That is the El Grande Americano.
All I know is I had no idea that Chad Gable was the original El Grande Americano.
I couldn't believe it. They pulled that mask off. It's Chad Gable. I was as stunned as Corey Graves was.
You know, I couldn't believe it. You know, like I thought Chad Gable was nursing an injury, and like it's crazy. You know, it's crazy to think that all this time Chad Gable was El Grande Americano.
This whole time, he had us fooled. A ruse.
But I'm gonna tell you what, man. Outside of all of Kaiser's fucking legal trouble leading up to this, the Mexican fucking people love this guy.
They loved every bit of all of this. Like, by the time this was like approaching its conclusion, either of them would come out.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Like, they had that event for him, like right out. It was that they postponed or canceled because of his legal issues. That like dedication to El Grande Americano, where you see the picture and like his eyes are just full of tears because of how much they love and respect El Grande Americano in the Mexican culture. Who would have ever thought that a fucking German dude and an American dude, both pretending to be Mexican dudes, would be the hottest storyline in all of Lucha Libre, at least in the last 10 years.
Yeah, in a decade at least. Like since Rey Mysterio came back from Mexico from being in like Lucha Underground and AAA and stuff. There hasn't been anything that even scratches the surface of this. And the fact that they're back and that they did, and then they teased this match. This buildup lasted forever, and the fact that they then went out there and tore the absolute house down for like 40 minutes.
Oh my God! And that crowd was invested from the fucking first beat of the first entrance until those guys cleared the ring after all of the shit at the end, which was every bit of 90 minutes.
Yeah. So the match itself, bell to bell, was 40 plus. But you're right. There was pomp and circumstance in the entrance. And then afterwards with Chad pulling with his mask, which was already shredded up. And he pulled that mask off and played with his hair, and his head just started going like he was bleeding. I was like, oh, like, because through the match, like there's blood coming out, and like you could see, but nobody like looked because they had masks on, particularly banged up. And once Gable's mask came off, you're like, oh,
yeah,
that's
that
a lot of
forehead
blood.
was definitely chatting.
Yeah, dude, it was like squirting. It was so much. Like when he first furrowed his brow, it went. It was like, oh my God. Like, I watched it a couple times. It was like freaked out every time. But that entire match was insane too. The things those guys pulled off, and it was like they never stopped. Their tank just like it was unbelievable. The athleticism, the pacing, the structure, the crowd. I don't know. I can't remember, a match that I've seen that's been. First of all, the crowd's been that electric for. Maybe the Rock in Austin. Like this was Mexico's The Rock in Austin, but like you said, it's a American guy and a German guy pretending to be Mexican guys, and the crowd's like, nope, these are our guys. We're down. Let's go.
I mean, the atmosphere was amazing. Hey, and if you're just you're just getting here with us, man, we've been off the air for like 4 or 5 weeks. We're just trying to get caught up, talking about some things. So if you appreciate what we're doing, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, man. We would consider and maybe even consider subscribing. We would greatly appreciate it. But man, the crowd was electric, bro. And it's like, I think going into it, we all knew that Gable was going to lose that match, just simply from the standpoint of what Kaiser had done under the mask on WWE television, as well as in AAA. And just being there and just the fanfare around him as that guy. Um, what an amazing finish to that feud. Friend of the show, Pat Martin, checking in here with we appreciate you guys. Um, it's one of those things, man, that's just so organic. Um, and I remember when Gable got hurt, and we were like, well, this fucking blows. El Grande Americano is over as El Grande Americano is over as fuck. Like the WWE audience is just so into what is happening. And then like 2 weeks later, here comes fucking Kaiser out dressed as fucking El Grande Americano, and just like what he did with that, and like how he embraced that, and and then adding Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, as the Los Americanos, and what they were able to add to that. And then, you get Chad Gable comes back at the Rumble, and they're in, like 15 and 16. That shit was awesome. And then, you get into AAA, and then the Creed brothers are fucking involved, and they're under a mask. It's
Julio and Bruto.
Yeah, Julio and Bruto. It just, the job that they did, that the Undertaker did in AAA with this storyline, and the way that the Mexican fans, the Mexican Lucha Libre fans, embraced this storyline, and specifically Marcel Bartel, aka Ludwig Kaiser, aka El Grande Americano. I don't think anybody could have predicted that would have happened.
No.
And then obviously Kaiser goes in and he wins the Los Deus Reyes tournament, or whatever the fuck that was called. The Day of the Kings, or whatever it was. He wins that tournament, and then like gets himself in line for a fucking title shot, and and then Chad Gable comes back as the OG, and then you derail that, and it's just, what an amazing job by WWE, TKO, The Undertaker, now Rey Mysterio, being involved as the general manager of AAA. It's just incredible. The match, 40 minutes of just brutal work. Those guys beat the absolute dog shit out of one another. They told a great story. They told a great Lucha Libre story. I remember, I look back at, when Rey Mysterio lost his mask in WCW. And that was really the first time that I had ever been exposed to a luchador, losing their mask, and, the great shame that comes with it. My God, they did a great job with this.
Ray losing his mask was really cool too, because
it was funny because I had texted you earlier about, I forgot WCW had a boy band. In the backstage segment, that the backstage portion of that in-ring segment, Rey Mysterio without a mask, young Rey Mysterio without a mask, was in one of those backstage camera shots, and I just giggled, to myself, and it's like, oh, look how young Ray looks. Like, you just see it in his face,
I mean, he would have been early 20s at that point, at least. Probably.
Yeah.
That would have been like late 90s. So yeah, it would have been early 20s. He would have been in his early 20s. It's 30 years ago.
But what a great job. The in-ring story absolutely paid off. The build-up and the feud, like you said, was on NXT, was on SmackDown, it was on Raw, it was on AAA, it was on Twitter. It was
on Twitter.
These guys are cutting promos and on Twitter and adding to it, and it's just amazing amazing work by WWE and AAA Creative to make this matter, especially make this matter to a mainstream casual wrestling fan. This shit was everywhere for like 14 days after this match happened. I was still seeing new shit pop up on Twitter. I was still seeing new shit pop up on YouTube. I was still seeing new shit pop up on Instagram. What a great job. And if we can get more of this in the big two, meaning AEW and WWE, more of this type of storytelling, more of this type of investment in what two performers are doing, more of this in meaning like the in-ring storytelling, more of this meaning the internet presence. God, dude, pro wrestling would never, ever be the same again. I really do think that they did a great job with this program. And the fact that Uncle Dave gave this 5 3/4 stars, I think tells you all that you need to know. Okay. He's clearly a WWE apologist. You know, like he gives no fucks about anything the WWE does. You know, he gargles the salt off of Tony Khan's balls every single chance he gets. I think the fact that he endorsed this match with 5 3/4 stars, being the first WWE produced match in the history of Dave Meltzer and WWE, I think it tells you, as a quote unquote hardcore wrestling fan, all that you need to know about what this match, this feud, this program, that you need to know. And if you haven't seen it 3 or 4 weeks out, you need to fucking get on the old YouTube. You need to go check it out because it is worth every single second to watch. Because what an amazing job these two guys did. What an amazing story they told with all of the auxiliary AAA folks. And you've got Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, and you've got the Creed brothers, and you know Chad Gable's wife and kids, and you know the chick that needed to be deported by ICE. I can't remember her name. Just like
she's like the ring announcer, isn't she?
Yeah. But like, and then you got the dude that's like a staple in AAA. You know the flamboyant dude, you know, showing up after he got beat up a few weeks prior, and like that was a big deal to the AAA folks. Like, what an amazing fucking job.
I feel like I didn't watch enough of this on AAA because, and you know, obviously I watched that match, but I felt like after it was over, I'm like, really wish it's just on YouTube. I really wish I'd have watched more of this.
Yeah,
before it happened. So I'm trying to. I'm trying to find time to like get back through at least those clips to kind of see what I missed, because you know I'd see 10 seconds here, 15 seconds there, but it wasn't like I sat down and watched the show and watched it develop like every clip as it went along. And it seems like that was a mistake. I wasn't aware of their game, is what I was saying. But then They showed me, and I was like, oh my God, let's go back and read. But it's all free on YouTube, so you can go look at like all of it. It's great.
I mean, and then that kind of leads us into where we're at now, present day, right? Do you think WWE's fucking the pooch with Chad Gable right now?
No, because they're still putting him on TV. I think what they're trying to do is kind of like drip it out. I know you haven't seen today, but you should that clip I thought was pretty good. The rest of Raw today was pretty awful. But I thought that the Chad Gable stuff, because I think Chad gets 2 segments, one backstage and one in the ring, and then or maybe 2 backstage, and then the Chad Gable stuff and the main event I thought were really, really good. I don't think they're screwing the pooch on it yet. I think that it's a matter of they're like, well, it was a slow burn with the El Grande Americano stuff. I think it needs to be sort of a slow burn with Chad Gable as well. I wouldn't hate it to figure out to see Chad Gable win the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam. We're still more than a month out from that. I think that could be a cool build, especially, if it picks up once this Night of Champions is over this weekend. If this because obviously Chad Gable is not going to be a part of the Night of Champions, but he's still very involved in what's happening backstage and in the ring, and he gets a couple segments every week. So I think right now they're biding their time, and I think that much in the way that the AEW Forbidden Door is sort of a pause during the sort of the busiest time of year for a lot of people, so the slowest time for wrestling because one, prices of everything are insane, so there aren't as many people buying extracurricular tickets, but also two, just it's busy. Like every night you got softball, you got soccer, you got baseball, you got whatever. If you've got a kid, and obviously I think that at least most of the wrestling fans I know have families, so it kind of becomes one of those that's if you pause it only for the most hardcore fan or the people that are just popping in that are hardcore fans, and you do some things that aren't necessarily okay, you need to watch this to understand what's going to happen for the rest of the year. It's a canon event. It's you kind of get all right, well, we're going to do a tournament, and the winner gets a title shot and gets to wear a crown around, and that's kind of cool and all, but it's one of those things where it almost feels inconsequential. A year from that moment, it's rather inconsequential generally. But screwing the pooch with Chad Gable, no, he was on tonight, and I think that what happened tonight is gonna sort of show you that they're kind of back on they're on the upswing, or they're starting to come on the upswing on this stuff. So that would be my hope, is that they're just kind of trickling it along till we get through the Night of Champions, and then get a build between them and then in SummerSlam.
Yeah, I did see some internet postings about Chad Gable, in today's Monday Night Raw, Monday Afternoon Raw.
But a lot of those lately.
Well, been a lot of international shows lately, so trying to solidify their global presence. But yeah, I do think that mask versus mask, one of the best matches that I've seen in a very long time.
Definitely agree. Definitely was.
So, I got a couple more things here, and then we can round out real quick. I'm going to shift gears here, and I want to talk about our friend Janelle Grant.
Oh, geez. Did that happen while we were not? Was there more?
No. It did, but it didn't. This is just another internet blurb that I read, and I said, "Oh, Tom will love this."
Okay, well, that's good. This is not what I thought it was going to be. So good.
So this here says, "I covered the Janelle Grant story with honesty, deductive reasoning, and an open dialogue for the truth. I read all of the lawsuit and other public info multiple times. Janelle Grant agreed to do what she did in her consensual relationship with Vince McMahon. That was her decision to make as an adult. Being a depraved, brain-rotten person is not a crime. I hope she gets her money and continues her career as a professional victim. She fooled a lot of you, but didn't fool me, not for one single second. Neither did her lousy attorney, Ann Callis. There was never a reason to release any salacious details attempting to crumble an empire. You simply could have gone private to private arbitration straight from the jump. Just awful.
Who said that?
It was just a Facebook dirt sheet.
Just some dirt sheet writer guy. I mean, I don't know why you'd have to read all that stuff too. Somebody gets his jollies off reading about dirty lawsuits, dirty, filthy lawsuits. That's good shit, pal. But I mean, partially, I think I agree. Do I think that she was likely mistreated and there was probably a breach of contract? Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that she signed a contract off to a certain amount of money. She didn't get that money. And she thought that after everything she'd done, she deserved that money. And, you know, then they started releasing all the details and it's like, well, these are salacious accusations and details. However, we've known the Vince McMahon, who he was, and she was clearly in a consensual, as far as all the court documents could tell, she was in a consensual relationship with him. He was a freaky guy. She never said he beat him up or he beat her up or he didn't hit her. He clearly treated her very well, spent a ton of money on her. Just didn't pay her the cash money. I mean, he spent money on her for things, but didn't give her actual money that they had agreed to.
Give me all the human monies.
All the human monies, or I will give you this jar of teeth. And so it fell apart. And like this says, yeah, you know, I think there was definitely, instead of just, you know, taking him to court to try to take him to arbitration, just get your money and go home. And that honestly probably would have been a better way to get money, truthfully, because had they not dragged it public, Vince would have probably loved to, because obviously this is kind of what pushed him off of, like, he needed to go, but this was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And so, you know, kind of in using this to finally get Vince McMahon out, like, they could have easily just gone to arbitration. Vince would have loved to keep it quiet, pay up the rest of the contract, maybe some fees, lawyer fees or something or whatever to get through arbitration. But, you know, they decided that there was more story to tell and they had to make all of this public and sort of failed to make the case that this wasn't just a consensual relationship, because the defense had text messages, they had voicemails, they had written messages. Like, this was all documented for a long, and this isn't Vince McMahon's first rodeo either. Like, you're gonna say things that he's gonna collect just in case. That's what these NDAs are for. That's what all that is. So, am I saying that Vince was an angel in this? No, absolutely not. We've known this man was a scumbag, but did he do anything illegal? I mean, I didn't see anything that was like, well, they had a consensual relationship and she was mad when it was over, and that seems to, and didn't get paid something that she was owed, and kind of left that as her sort of inroad to what happened, at least based on the evidence provided. You know, if more happened and if there was something that happened, she couldn't seem to articulate it, and neither could her attorneys. And I think, you know, the thing that kind of stood out to me is kind of the final nail in the coffin of, like, sort of a teeter-totter between, like, well, is there actually something, you know, that happened to her other than just a breach of contract, or is this just sort of like a kind of, I don't want to say publicity stunt, but it's sort of like I just want to hurt this man. And, you know, maybe Vince McMahon deserves to be hurt. I don't think anybody's crying, oh, Vince was wronged. It's like, no, Vince wronged a lot of people. He probably got what he deserved. It was likely karma by the end. But it doesn't seem like she had the evidence to do, you know, what's going on as far as to claim what was going on as far as the trafficking and the dragging Brock Lesnar into it. And I mean, nowhere in any of that stuff was she ever able to produce something that said Brock Lesnar's name. You know, it was, and then every time it would come up, like, Brock would come back, she'd come back out. And I think that was the thing, is particularly her last statement. She came out and sort of just like rambled on about all the terrible things that had happened to her, but she never mentioned anything specific. She never presented any evidence. It was just, you know, it was just what it was. It was just her talking. hey, remember me? I think that's how we talked about it. It was like, hey, remember me? I know Vince McMahon was in the news and Brock Lesnar was on TV, so I'm going to come out and talk. And I have a statement, but her statement went nowhere. And I think that's kind of finally, sort of what this comment of this dirt sheeter is trying to get at, is that, like, she just, there was breach of contract. I think that's perfectly clear. But I don't think that they made clear that anything else, further than that that happened. I mean, the details are horrific, but it didn't sound necessarily illegal between consenting adults who continued to consent.
No, I mean, I don't think so at all. And like, I just don't. I don't know, man. Like I told you this at the beginning of all of this. Like, it just all feels extremely dirty.
I mean, if you read, it was dirty.
Yeah, I mean, I read, I did read, but like I'm talking about like just the way that we got here.
I think we've said before, everybody was the villain in this story. Why was everybody the villain?
Yeah.
And it became well, why do we care? They're all the villain. Like, okay, the villains are fighting. Why do we care? Like, we'll just, whoever loses, great, fuck you.
So, what do you make of this professional victim comment?
I think in order to be a professional, you need to do it more than once. I think if she comes about again, then that's different. I think you can't be a professional victim one time. I think when you're a victim one time, or you think you're a victim one time, that's that. So I guess we'll see, right? Like, does she move on? If she moves on from Vince McMahon to Tony Khan to Triple H,
I don't think all that's going to happen either. But what I think he's alluding to is the fact that, like, every time this has gone silent, she's come out with something. You know what I mean? Like, every time this has stopped, her attorney has come forward with some sort of new evidence or a new statement or
press conference.
Hey, don't forget about me. I think that's what he's alluding to when he leans into this quote unquote professional victim statement.
Maybe, but I don't know. It seems like it should have been done and dusted by now, and
I agree.
It still kind of comes up, and I think that's really the issue that anybody even, like, because who even cares anymore about Vince McMahon as a wrestling fan? It's like he's been gone.
Well,
he's been out
I mean, the internet seems to care about Vince McMahon possibly buying TNA.
It's like the same 8 guys. I mean, I don't think he's going to buy TNA. Vince McMahon was going to start his own wrestling company for a minute. Remember?
I do remember, but I'm just saying.
Now he's going to buy TNA. I think all this is bullshit. I don't think Vince is buying TNA. I don't think Vince is starting his own wrestling promotion. I don't think he's starting a bare knuckle fighting promotion with Hulk Hogan. God rest his soul.
No, Hulk Hogan's dead.
I know,
but him and Eric Bischoff did start the fucking freestyle wrestling, which by all accounts seems to be doing extremely well.
I mean, for what it is. I don't know. I haven't watched it. I probably should. R.I.P. Hulkster.
What you gonna do, brother? What you gonna do when friend of the show Pat Martin hits a thumbs up for you?
I mean, I don't know. We've been dogging on the Hulkster for. I saw. Oh my God! Have you ever seen the video? It's like a music video from when Hulk Hogan left WWF and went to Japan, and it's like.
But he didn't leave WWF when he went to Japan. He was still the WWF champion when he was in Japan.
But it was so there's a music video that he shot about like being in a gang and who's in the gang, and it's his gang, and it's because he's just dressed in the red and yellow, like he's dressed but he's singing. He's like singing like a hair metal song about a gang, and it's his gang, and it's hilarious. I'll have to find the clip and send it to you. I forgot it existed. It's the funniest thing.
Yeah, definitely have to send that to me. All right, as we round third base here, I want to, and we're getting ready to slide into home. I'd like to take a minute to point out my lovely $4 T-shirt off of Temu.
I saw it when you first sat down. It's Owen has Brett and a sharpshooter.
Yes.
Pretty sweet.
Friend of the show, Pat Martin, with the thumbs up. Hey, Tom. Hey, Tom.
It was with green jelly. It's called "I'm the Leader of the Gang." Parentheses. I am. I'm gonna send this to you. You may want to put this up. Hold on.
I don't know that my internet can handle me putting up an auxiliary video.
Okay. Well, maybe I should do. All right, never mind. I'll just send it to you, and you can watch it later because it's awesome. I just want to copy the link. See, I'm doing this live, and it's terrible. I'm killing the show right now. The silence is awful.
That's not that silent.
Okay, there. I've now sent it to you. It's one of the best worst things you've ever seen in your life.
I'll have to watch it when we come off. When we come off.
One of the best and worst things you've ever seen in your life.
So let's go ahead and let's round third here. We're in the in between time, and we are SummerSlam is way out there on the horizon. We're in the midst of the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring tournament. And we're looking at the finals. Whoever wins the King of the Ring gets a title shot at SummerSlam. And we're looking at Liv Morgan versus Io Sky and Oba Femi versus main event Jey Uso. What's your thoughts on Queen of the Ring first?
So, first of all, I kind of hated how they started this tournament with a fatal four-way in both, or with like fatal four-ways. So, like knocking a bunch of people out. I kind of hated that. From there, the women's Queen of the Ring tournament, particularly making it to be Liv versus Io Sky. Liv is the champion currently on Raw. And not only is she the champion, she has not defended her title, which everybody has noticed and has become problematic. Now she is in the finals for the Queen of the Ring tournament, winner getting a title shot. They interviewed Liv and they were like, "Oh, I'm gonna go take the belt off of Rhea." And while I understand that as motivation, does this make any sense? Like here, what it is right now, too, and whomever wins it is likely going to go after Rhea.
I think it's going to be Liv, if I'm being honest with you.
I kind of do too. I don't think they want to do Io versus Rhea, and that's probably what they're going to do with that. Because if it's Io versus Liv and Io wins, why would Io go again? Just fight Liv again?
Are we gonna have Livy Two Leathers? Is that what we're looking at here?
Livy Two Leathers. I mean, I think that's her intention. I think what would happen in that respect is they'd probably just do Liv versus Rhea for SummerSlam and just have Rhea retain. Or would it be for both? Or would they make it be for both belts? Would something happen?
I don't think so, because it's very much gets a title shot. But if you're the champion,
yeah, but maybe you're not defending your title. If at that point in time,
it's definitely a weird wrinkle,
right? Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. It's not. It's weird. I don't like where it started. I'm not sure I like where it ends. I think there were fun matches in between, and I think it certainly helped make Raw really good. Other than other than this week. This week it was not good because there were no matches about it. It was just sort of promoing the matches that are going to happen on Saturday, which is shaping up to be a pretty good pay-per-view, but it also is going to happen at like 1 in the afternoon. So, you know, I don't know if you're home at 1 in the afternoon on Saturday, but I'll have to watch it later. And so, no, I don't like it. I think it's a weird wrinkle just with who is the champion right now. I think that it sacrificed Liv, you know, because I think Liv Morgan's a great wrestler, and I think it sacrificed her having, you know, matches on TV, or just matches in period. And maybe she was hurt. Maybe there was some concern around that, and maybe that's what they were.
Or maybe there's not a viable contender on the Monday product.
See, I don't know that I believe that either, especially because Io's there. But I guess, you know, they did just kind of feud, and they're probably just going to do it again. But you're right. Maybe there just isn't another viable contender after Io, and they don't want to. And they're doing good stuff with the like Intercontinental title right now, so they don't want to like mess up who's in the mid card because that's pretty hot right now. And the women's tag titles have been relatively hot as well, despite being on Brie mode, who doesn't wrestle. They let Paige do all the wrestling. It's insanity. They've defended, which is wild. They've defended a ton.
They've defended more than they should have.
Yeah, well, and Paige has done all the wrestling. Brie like does one little bad looking sequence, and that's Paige basically does the rest. But it's not ever really any different. There's like some reversals, some back and forth, some up, rampage, and you know, it is what it is. I guess that's always how Paige's matches have gone, though.
I don't know. I'm not into any of that, and like, I don't fucking know. But
the men's. You want to talk about the men's?
Yeah, we can absolutely talk about the men's. I mean, you obviously have already talked about your displeasure with the Fatal 4-Ways to get in, even though I thought there were some really, really good matches. You know, Fatal 4-Way matches specifically on the men's side.
Well, the women's ones were pretty bad, if we're being honest. The men's ones were better. I just don't like Fatal 4-Ways, I think, in general, and I think that's part of my issue with it, because it then kind of made the rest of the bracket seem really fast. And not necessarily really fast, but just there wasn't enough matches. Like there should have been more matches. There just weren't enough matches after the fact. But I thought, and you know, you can tell me, but honestly, the matches leading up to and where it kind of ended up and the sort of feuds that spawned out of it, I don't mind where we are on the men's side. And I know this is a really unpopular opinion on the internet. As far as who won, other than like how, you know, quickly we got to like the last, like, you know, I think we started, there were 8 guys on each side, so there would have been 16. We got down to like 8 guys real fast. Like that happened, like it was real fast because it was just those one matches. And then there was like just so much drag in between because they had to like build a little feud between the guys who were going to go next. Obafemi obviously just running through people the way he should. He looks super strong. But I don't think they're going to put it on Oba because he's still got a Brock Lesnar problem. I thought for sure that Oba versus Dom was going to kind of be Brock Lesnar was going to come out and make a mess for Oba, and Dom was going to weasel his way into the finals. Honestly, I kind of would like to see, I think Dom versus Jay would actually be pretty good as far as a stylistic matchup is concerned. But that did not happen. And we got, you know, Oba ran through Dom the same way he did everybody else. Dom lasted a little longer. That match went 10 or so minutes. But and then on the SmackDown side, you know, we had Jay versus LA Knight, I think was the other final match. And, you know, so Jay winning King of the Ring, winning to get to the King of the Ring finals. And then he and Oba had a little standoff this evening. The internet hates that because the internet still hates Jey Uso, despite the fact that he's kind of like turned heel, gotten a little edgier. The internet still hates him.
I think we can agree that Jey Uso is going to win King of the Ring, right?
Yeah, I think that it almost seems like Brock Lesnar's gonna has to insert himself, which would give Oba an easy out. So then Oba can face Brock Lesnar for Brock Lesnar's retirement at SummerSlam, and then it lets Jey Uso fight Cody and lose, because or maybe he wins. Who knows? But I think Jey versus Cody makes a lot of sense. I think that if you have Obafemi win, you either have, and I think he's already called out Roman Reigns, or at least he did it first. He may change his tune a little bit tonight, like, oh, should I go after Roman Reigns? Should I go after? But I think that it's going to be, I don't think Oba's going to win, and I think Jay's going to win. I think Jay's going to go after Cody. I don't know how that match goes. But then we also get Brock and Oba 3 at SummerSlam, which I would be very excited to watch, because those first two were just big, meaty men just smashing meat. It was great. So I'm not upset with how with how this has gone on the men's side. I do think the women's side's a little dumb.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with you. I think that, Night of Champions being in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, obviously the High Prince in Saudi Arabia, definitely writing the check to have Brock Lesnar make the flight just to interrupt Obafemi, I think is kind of a foregone conclusion. I do agree with you that I felt like Dom beating Oba made more sense. Just simply because Dominic would have been entirely insufferable.
Exactly.
And you and I were talking about it the night that this match happened, because I was a couple of hours behind. I was about an hour and 10 behind the live.
We were pretty close. It kind of depended, because I kept pausing and getting up, having to do stuff.
And we were kind of talking about it that night, and it's like, oh, Dom could use the heat. Dom could absolutely use the heat, especially considering that, like, Oba is just so fucking over. And Dominic Mysterio obviously still ups and downs when it comes to the fans. I feel like Jey Uso is 100% going to beat Obafemi because of Brock Lesnar. Jay's going to go on, probably lose to Cody at SummerSlam. But there's a possibility he could beat Cody at SummerSlam too.
So I was thinking about that, and I think that the possibility for that would be purely just to get Cody onto Raw, because Raw is obviously their moneymaker. It's where all the eyeballs are. It's on Netflix. It's in the most houses, and SmackDown just seems to sort of becoming like, remember what SmackDown was in like 2016, 2017, where it was kind of half Raw recap show.
Yep.
It didn't really have its own divisions. It had a champion, and it had, a couple other things, but it was mostly like Raw recaps. You saw a lot of Raw superstars showing up on SmackDown. While the champ would get his promo, and AJ Styles being the face that ran the place, he would have a great match as the main event, but it was mostly just kind of like, hey, make sure you watch Raw on Monday kind of show, or hey, don't forget this Sunday or this Saturday, when they switched it to Saturday, it is our premium live event. So it kind of became very much its own hype man, or WWE's sort of commercial show, and I think it's kind of becoming that again. So I think they putting it on Jey Uso, I think makes a lot of sense, because it hides him on the lesser watched show.
Well, I think too, Jey Uso beating Oba at Night of Champions and then going on to beat Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, or even just having a match with Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, kind of takes all the air out of the CM Punk rumors that they're going to just move him over to the Blue Brand and have him compete for the world title. I mean, maybe he comes in and he costs Jey Uso the match at SummerSlam.
Maybe.
And Cody's on his fucking high horse, about, doing the right thing, especially where Sami Zayn's concerned. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because we don't have enough time tonight for that bullshit. But, I think they're actually doing a pretty decent job with Sami until he just like full on turns and becomes the master manipulator that we all know and love. And maybe he can get back on that generational run that he was on before, Uzi Hot was a thing.
Before he became, I'm just going to interrupt you. Yeah.
So, friend of the show, Pat Martin, had put in here, what do you guys think about the possibility of Chad Gable versus LA Knight feud, since they're not going to give either one of those guys championship belts?
I disagree. I think they're going to give Chad Gable the Intercontinental title here sooner rather than later.
You think he's going to beat Penta? That'd be fucking like full circle shit.
Yeah, and I think that's why, because it would be full circle shit. It would be
because if you think about it, Pentagon is the reason that we got El Grande Americano.
Because Penta beat him twice, and he was like, "I'm gonna go find all the secrets to Lucha Libre, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna beat you." And then
he got a telephone number from fucking Dominic Mysterio, and
I remember that. It's very full circle, and I think that that's what's going to happen next. I don't think it makes sense to have LA Knight feud with Chad Gable at the moment. LA Knight is very entrenched in what's going on now with the reformation of the bloodline,
which I think is just going to continue to get deeper and thicker.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to continue to add. I do think they're going to get Solo back into the fold, so I think that's going to bring in the Tongans as well. And with the Tongans and with Jacob Fatu. My only worry is that at that point it's so many people. How do you keep them all relevant? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, the Bloodline was the hottest story in WWE for almost 5 full fucking years.
That's true. Yeah, and if you add 2 more guys to the mix, 3 more guys to the mix, I think that the idea would be, well, the Bloodline is here, and that's kind of like the your Rock or Stone Cold. The Bloodline will be here, and sometimes it's Roman, sometimes it's Jay, but they've got other guys to be down to be there who they can advertise as the Bloodline, but it's Big Jim and Talatanga or something like that. It's
how about Roman giving Big Jim his flowers a couple of weeks ago?
I mean, I thought that was nice. I think Big Jim.
I thought it was good.
I think Jimmy Uso's been doing good work. He's been sort of the unsung hero of this whole thing. He's kind of the glue that holds it all together, because he's trying to talk to like LA Knight, like, man, come on, you got to stay out of this bit. You got to stay out of this. You just let us go, blah, blah, blah. And then, when he gets hit, like, he fights back, and I think that he's been really, really good. And I think that he's not getting the credit he deserves at this point.
Janae wants to know, having watched wrestling in years, maybe 20 or so, would now be a good time to reinsert?
I mean, I think so. I think it's never a bad time. Wrestling's not all that complicated. So I don't think it's a bad time. I think that, you could get in now, kind of get on the see who wins at Night of Champions. Maybe it'll introduce you to some faces who you're going to be seeing. And then I think that gives you time, because Night of Champions is this coming Saturday. So it gives you basically all
live on ESPN Unlimited.
Yeah, it gives you all of a month and a half to kind of get to SummerSlam, which is theoretically
a tentpole event.
Yeah, it's the second biggest show of the year. So usually they do,
and it will be the second show in WWE's lineup to get the 2-day treatment.
Yeah, the 2-day. So we'll see how that goes, because I don't know how much I like it. Like, when WrestleMania had that much time, the one on ESPN was not very good. It did not need 2 nights, and I feel like they're going to do the same or worse at SummerSlam.
Here you go. Nothing anybody does is ever fucking good enough for Tom.
No,
you know what I mean? Like,
it's not.
I'm fairly certain we had this conversation when we came out of Mania, after night 2, and it's like, oh my God, Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar. Let me jerk off real quick.
It was
Right?
great.
Is that accurate? Is that how that goes?
Yeah, that's why I'm excited for the third one.
But I can't believe that they started on ESPN2 on Saturday with that bullshit I Show Speed and fucking the Usos in LA.
No, actually, I like that. I didn't hate that. That wasn't me that hated that.
Here you go.
I thought
if that was Jungle Boy, if that was Jungle Boy and fucking Luchasaurus, you'd have had a fucking conniption fit. No. This 20-second timeout. Let me strike that. If that was Jungle Boy versus that fucking the Sizzler, the Rizzler's dad, what's his fucking name?
AJ. Yeah.
Okay, you'd have had a fucking conniption fit. But because it's under the big fucking WW, you're okay.
I'm gonna give you 4 booms. Boom, boom.
This
boom.
Fucking guy. I can't stand you sometimes, bro. I just like all right.
So,
go ahead.
I was to say now's a good time. It'll lead you up to SummerSlam, which is a big event. You'll see some big matches, and it's fun. I don't know if you have ESPN, but if you do have ESPN, it's fun to watch those premium live events. Raw's on Netflix. They'll show you anything that you'd missed from SmackDown, which generally isn't much. And you can concisely watch 1 to 2 shows a week and be pretty well informed. So I do think that it's fun, and there's a lot of fun things happening, and should be hopefully a lot of fun things happening up to SummerSlam. Hopefully AEW picks back up again after they hit pause and do this Forbidden Door thing where they merge companies. But AEW is a fun one to check out too.
Hell yeah. All right, Bob. Well, I feel like we've only got one little tiny piece of business left to do here. And unfortunately for us, this has a very broad brush that we are about to paint with. But it is the world famous, internet breaking One Fall WrestleCast match.
So, I mean, obviously the match of the year happened while we were not on. So I think I'm going to exclude that from my.
Yeah, I mean, there's no fucking shot that there's anything better since we've not been on TV, or since we've not been on, we've recorded.
So I'm going to say that today's main event on Raw, and I'm not going to get into why or even what it was, because I know you have not watched it yet. Today's main event on Raw made up for, it was like, okay, how sometimes you see there's pictures on the internet, right? And it's a bunch of different things. And it's like, all right, you have $20, pick a team. And like somebody's worth $1, somebody's worth $5, somebody's worth $10, or somebody's worth $18 or something like that, right? And you've got $20 to pick a team. It was like they had the ability to book a show. And it was like, you got $20. You got a couple of these couple segments are $1 segments. And this one is the most expensive segment. And they spent all the money on the cheap segments and got the one.
Human monies?
Human monies got all spent on the cheap segments and none on the main.
Woo.
He wasn't even on the show, which sucks for him. Yeah, the main event kind of made it all worth it. Fantastic main event. Probably one of the better Raw main events that I've seen in a long time. I was actually kind of feeling bad for the UK crowd for as bad as Raw was otherwise, because it was basically just promos building what was going to happen on Saturday, which was not in that building. So those poor people had to just hear about the show that they were going to miss next week because they're not in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So it was that, but their main event it paid them off, and I hope they had some dark matches too, because there was a lot of not wrestling happening. It was a lot of talking, a lot of segments. I want to say there was maybe 5 matches overall in a 2.5 hour show, but the main event really went hard. So that's my match of the week.
Hell yeah. My match of the week this week was definitely Jey Uso versus Javon Evans. Anybody that wants to say that Jey Uso can't fucking wrestle needs to go watch that fucking match, and that's really all I've got to say about that.
Javon's so fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Nobody does that like he does that.
Bright future, for sure, bright future. It's just not right now. Maybe next year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let him get an Intercontinental title under his belt. Give him a year. I think he'll be all right.
So I mean that's kind of where I'm at with that. But oh my god, that's fucking so bad right now.
Black Hornswoggle. No Black Hornswoggle.
Did it come up? Did it come up?
It did. It did.
There we go. Is there a Black Hornswoggle yet? I would definitely watch that. No, but there was a midget on not that long ago, but he was under a mask and he had a fucking hell of a match. I'm sorry. That was very politically incorrect. There was a little person under a mask not that long ago that looked like Danhausen.
I'll say, was that Minihausen?
And if you're familiar with the, being as you're a lapsed fan, if you're familiar with the NBA Finals, Danhausen willed the New York Knicks to the NBA championship. Danhausen, Minihausen, was the last little person that was on WWE television. So
that was WrestleMania, was it not? Am I wrong?
No, it was on a Monday Night Raw.
Oh shit! Yeah, that Minihausen stuff was insane. It was great.
So,
but yes, there were little people. There were actually a lot of little people.
Yes, there were a lot of little people. That was on a pay-per-view, I think. No, that Monday night. It doesn't matter. There was a lot of little people. So, all right, Bub. Well, I think that we've come to the end of our journey this evening. Hey, man, if you're still hanging out with us, man, we appreciate you. Go ahead, hit that thumbs up button. Maybe even consider subscribing. We would greatly appreciate it. As you know, you can check us out over on the audio side on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, One Fall WrestleCast. We greatly appreciate your love on that piece of our experience. Check us out over on Twitter and Instagram at @1_fall WC. That's ONE. And as always, thanks for hanging out. It's all. We'll catch you next week. I promise.
Yeah.
One Fall WrestleCast.
Yeah. I'm glad we got to do this. I missed you.
Yeah, I miss you too, pal. You didn't sound very, very,